going to need is your pattern. You're going to go into that description box down below, and that'll give you all the information on where to find this. This is the template, so we're going to cut all the way around the outside line. This is where our seam allowance is on our mini quilt. If you can't figure out which colour is which, just refer back to the diagram. So let's get started. So our first piece of fabric is A1, and I've decided to use a piece of my scrap here, and this is a 5x5 and it fits perfectly within this square. Now the two squares that we're looking at is A1 to A2 right now. So we're going to fold that back along that line, just like that. So this is A1 and A2, so I need like the medium coloured pink to go next. That section goes behind the first section. I'm going to flip it over and I'll show you exactly what I'm doing. So the first piece of fabric will be face up, and then this fabric here will be face down if you've chosen to do a print. So flip it back over again. There needs to be 1/4 of an inch seam allowance at least, and then you can fold that back, and we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and stitch across this line. I use a Baby Lock Soprano sewing machine. I'm not paid nor sponsored to create this video. In the top thread I use a Gutermann polyester thread, and then I take my stitch lengths down to a 1.6 on a straight stitch. Then in my sewing needle I have a 9014 Microtex, regular sewing foot on, and thread in my bobbin. Take my mini quilt over to the sewing machine, and then I'm going to sew this into place. Go forward, then I backstitch, then I go forward again, and then I always backstitch at the end as well. Now you're always going to have like 2 threads at the front you're going to have to take away, and 2 threads at the back you need to take away. So you're going to chop them off so they're nice and tidy. I don't bother going over to an iron just to press right now. I will just flip this over and just press. Now what you want to make sure of is that pink has covered all of this here, and it has. So the next part is A3. So we find A3 here. We're going to fold over our mini quilt section, and then we're going to take off 1/4 of an inch. It's always handy to have a small mat by you so you can just do this, so you're not going up and down all the time. There we go. And then we're going to get another piece of that pink that we just used and place it down. Flip that paper back up and stitch across the next line. Clean up your threads, flip back. Then we need to see the next part, which is A4, which is over here. Once again, fold over the A4 line on your mini quilt, take off 1/4 of an inch, get another section of that pink we just worked with, flip it over holding everything, and stitch across A4. Trim your threads, flip up, turn everybody over, find A5, fold back, trim the mini quilt, find that last pink, place on top face down, stitch across A5. Okay, I'm going to move on to A6 here. It's a slightly darker pink. Fold it over. Oh, I didn't flip the other one, did I? Let's flip this one up. thought something looked a bit odd. Find A6, trim, 1/4 inch. Place that next piece of just slightly darker pink fabric onto your mini quilt and go ahead and stitch. I'm going to flip that up. Let's find our next piece, which is A7. It's right next to what we've just done. Now that is a lighter pink. I'm going to cut this away from the mini quilt. I can use this one for my next piece. Line up the light pink and stitch A7 into place. Flip back. Now if that section gets in your way a little bit, you can just trim that off. Now I'm working with A8. So I'm going to fold this over. I'm going to trim this part of the mini quilt. I'm going to get that slightly darker pink, lighten it up and stitch A8. Flip it up. Fold over that A9. Trim this off. And then we're going to get a nice piece of light pink. Place it down. And then we're going to stitch A9 of our mini quilt. Flip it over. Find A10. Fold. Trim. And we're getting that darker pink. Face down. And stitch the next part of your mini quilt. Flip up. Flip over A11. Trim off the excess. Place down a section of light pink and stitch down A11 of your mini quilt. Flip your fabric over and find the next one, which is A12. I'm going to fold this fabric over, trim, get that medium pink fabric, a little bit too long, trim, place that face down onto your mini quilt and stitch, flip over, find your next section, which is A13, which is your last piece now on your mini quilt. Trim away, get your next piece of light pink, face right sides down and stitch into place. Now flip that out. Then we're going to turn it back to the other side again. And we're going to start trimming all the way around the outside of this. I've already done this part because it was getting me away because it's too long. And while we're at it, this is a good time to tell you that I have over 500 sewing and quilting tutorials. So don't forget to subscribe. Please comment down below. It helps my channel when you do that, so people like you can find me. So just going to go all the way around, trim this off. It's so satisfying when you see it all done like this. The next thing you're going to do is take all the papers away, and it'll be really easy to take this away. If you're struggling, just keep folding it backwards and forwards like that, and it will just come straight off. You're going to take this over to your iron and press. Don't stretch anything, just press. Now I have my backing fabric face down to the table, my batting, and then my little miniature quilt top. I am going to do some decorative stitching to hold all 3 layers into place. This is stitch number 6. It's one of my favourite decorative stitches. Now I'm going to cut away the excess here. When your mini quilt is small like this is like a 4.5 by 4.5 inch square, I don't bother to try to get that bias binding join because it's just going to drive me potty. So I'll show you another way that I do it. So the width of my binding is no more than 2 inches. I have just done like 3 stitches here at the corner. Then I'm going to do my regular turns at the corner and then stitch all the way down the mini quilt. Once you get to that last corner, you're going to do them 3 or 4 stitches here. Now, what I'm going to do is just trim a bit of this side off. Then I'm going to turn another edge, take this over to my iron and press it down. So that's one side done. Then I'm going to come to this other side, go a little bit over and trim. Once again, I'm going to fold this back and press. I have them so they're overlapping one another, and I'm going to stitch all the way across. Now take away all of these stray bits of thread and cut them out. Once again, grab your clips and flip over to the other side and start clipping. Now, do you know all that really thin fabric that we all hate to quilt with? Well, it makes perfect binding. That's what I love them jelly rolls for, is for binding. Really do love a patterned binding. Anyway, you will now sew this to the back. This is what the mini quilt looks like. I hope you've had fun. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.